Hey there, wonderful people of the internet. It looks like we have a lovely Friday morning here with Mr. Corey Thompson. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I am actually feeling really bad right now. Like, I have zero clue what happened between me and you having that conversation and me going live, but the world is spinning around me right now and I'm dizzy as all hell. And that is not a joke. Like, I'm struggling even sitting up right now. So, I don't know what happened, but I am not feeling good as we speak right now. So, how are things going for you? And I'm going to cut over to you so I can sit down for a second.
Man, things are interesting. We were chopping it up a few days ago, and we were pretty deep in conversation. And you said, "Hey, we should probably have this conversation on a Facebook Live because there's a lot of good information on here." So we set it up for this Friday, and since then, I mean, since I've been sitting here this morning, I got some stats. Um,
I always like
I've
numbers.
got
Numbers make me happy.
Yeah, so we just leased something in Waco, and we just leased something one of our vacancies that we were actually we lost in eviction court. The judge, I don't even remember when we lost. I think we lost back in let's see February because we didn't get to go in March. So we lost in February in eviction court. The judge basically said, "Hey, y'all got to work with this guy," and so we
Hold on a second. Hold
worked
on a
with
second. I
him.
got a question on that. Like, why would the judge say you got to work with this guy? I'm used to Texas being a very landlord friendly state, and Texas just is like, hey, you're a landlord. Did you get paid? Yes. No. All right, get him out. Like, what happened on that?
Well,
Or should I
the
talk about
story
that?
goes the story goes that the judge is a real I don't know if mean's the right word, but mean is the word we're going to use. And basically, he wanted to see all the evidence. So just not paying wasn't enough. He wanted to see that we had offered. Basically, what the judge said was, "Do y'all want a chance to work with this guy? Because I'm not throwing out a vet on the street during this time. Do you want a chance to work with him?" And we were like,
Okay.
"Well, what does that mean?" And he's like, "Well, you're not going to like my ruling. So do you want a chance to work with him?" And it's like, "Yeah, we'll work something out." And the guy agreed to pay. He never paid a dime. And the judge is stern. I mean, the judge is a real I mean, he's an ex veteran himself. He's a he's like a real life GI Joe. We looked him up, and he has a real decorated war pass. And I think that because the other man was a vet, it played on in his favor a little bit. And because some of the notices and other things we didn't bring with us, we had done them, but we just didn't have, we couldn't show it all.
Right.
um, I think he was going to rule on the guy's favor, and we were going to have to. And from there, you appeal it to the county court, and when you get into the county court, now you're not in front of a JP, you're in front of an actual judge. We typically hire a lawyer at that point. We've only had to do one of those, but if you get a judge that wants to work with somebody, they'll work with them. We've lost another eviction case at the one that we leased in Waco. We lost an eviction case just because she brought a bunch of pictures of the property and said, "Hey, I wanted all this stuff repaired," and they didn't repair it. And we're like, "We did repair it." And the judge is like, "Show us." And we're like, "We don't have pictures that we did repair because we've never needed them in eviction court." We're talking like she wanted a door put in. It had a garage conversion,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to walk outside the house to get to the garage conversion. And she wanted a door into that room from her bedroom. And if it would have came across my desk, we'd have said no, but it went to the girls in the office, and the girls in the office were like, "Oh yeah, that's an easy fix." And so anyways, they added, I don't remember what the bill was. It was like $2,200 worth of work, though that was done while the contractor was there because the tenant started asking for stuff and the contractor started doing it, and it was done. But we didn't take that to court with us because we've never had to take that sort of evidence to court with us. And plus, the house wasn't in disrepair. We're talking about a list of stuff that you would that you normally have in any like it's not a thing where my air conditioner is not working. It's I want a door in between the bedroom. I want a different sink in my bathroom. I want new paint or texture on the ceilings. You know what I mean? It's silly stuff like that that
Understood. So,
normally um, definitely isn't required. But I'm trying to share this into Roughneck Real Estate.
oh, my bad. I wasn't trying to derail you on there, but man, like I'm just so used to Texas, at least in the JP courts here in DFW, like the judges outside of like one little district over in Dallas, the courts are very favorable to the landlord. Like I've had to evict several people over there in Dallas County, and every single time I went, it was quite literally they asked the tenant, "Are you current on rent? Yes or no?" I don't want to hear any excuses. Are you current on rent? Yes or no? And if they say no, they look over you at the landlord and they're like, "Are they current on rent? Yes or no?" No. Uh, in the favor of the landlord, get out. Like that's been my court experience on every single one of my evictions so far.
Yeah, and that's pretty typical. And these things happen, and I'm not even like I don't really sweat it. Like I don't sweat the fact that we lost that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the fact that you know that about a judge going in from everything moving forward is just the information that you need from that. So now you don't go in half cocked. You go in prepared with everything that they're going to ask for, could ask for. I mean, the judge in Waco said that we had to post a notice inside the door of the property. We had never heard that, but we know that about that judge now. We have two, maybe more than that in that particular judge's district or whatever it is area.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll make sure that we post the eviction notice inside the door of the properties from here moving forward. Something we've implemented to kind of curb that is within Appfolio. If you receive a judgment, you can enforce that judgment and bill collectors will start going after them. So let's say they don't pay rent, you win a judgment of $2,000. Your chances of collecting that $2,000 are slim to none, but getting that reported onto their credit's going to hurt them moving forward in anything they try to do, whether it's trying to buy a car, a lawnmower, whatever. And so something we've been doing now is at least enforcing those with Appfolio. We used to not do that because we didn't want to. We don't want to be that kind of asshole. But during these times, since they wouldn't let us evict and don't allow evictions and stuff like that during this pandemic, we've been reminding people that, hey, we understand you can't pay. You need to reach out to us. You need to let us know why you can't pay.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a job layoff or whatever it is, and then we need to put you on a payment plan that works for everybody. And if you don't respond to this, eventually evictions will open back up and we will seek a judgment and seek to enforce that judgment, which will negatively affect your credit. If you can find another place that's more affordable for you during this time, please let us help you do that. You know what I mean? Because we don't want to affect your ability to rent moving forward. Overall, during this time that we've been down, we've got, I think, 13 people left that haven't responded to reach out for a payment plan. We started with 20. We're down to 13. We had 13 holdovers from last month. Most of the people that didn't pay in March are already gone. So we're able to turn those units. And to be quite honest, I don't think we're going to have a big rush of evictions through all this. Our tenants have been fortunate that they've been able to either one, keep paying because they've not lost their job, or two, the rent is low enough that all of the government help and assistance that's out there right now has been able to help them to where they can pay. We have had some people try to take advantage of the system and, they're on disability or Social Security and they just heard, we don't have to pay rent. The president said we don't have to pay rent or whatever it is. And we're trying to educate them that that's not the case. But you can't, everybody don't have that level of sophistication all the time to understand that.
Let me ask you a couple of questions there.
Everything comes to an end eventually.
You got quite a bit going on there, and this is one of the things that we were talking about. And I was like, man, I'd really like to see how this looks on a grand scale. How many units are you currently got under your management?
So we've sold some. I think our peak we're at 300. I know that in Appfolio right now we have 200 units that are leased.
Okay.
We just remodeled 8 units or 6 units. 2 of them are occupied. So we just slammed a market with 6 fresh units.
Okay.
But overall, I think whenever we're at max occupancy, I think we'll be at about 240, 250 with what
Okay.
we're going to have available right now. We're about to start the remodel of a 16 unit apartment complex that right now only has 10 tenants in it. So there's 6
So
vacancies there.
total
So
units under management are around 250 or so, and out of 250 or
yes.
so units under management, you've only really seemed to have had a problem with about 20ish people or so that are struggling to get paid. Am I trying? I'm trying to figure out what these numbers are looking like.
Yes. So in March, we had 13. That's about our average. That's about our normal failure rate. 13 that didn't cure. So let's just say rent's due on the 1st. It's late on the 5th. On the 6th, we normally have about 40 evictions on our board. So the way our business normally works is late on due on the 1st, late on the 5th. On the 6th, you're getting a notice, right? The notices normally cure. So let's say we have 40. It normally cures all the way down to about 10 to 15.
Okay.
Okay. Actual evictions that we have to go through with, probably around 6 or 7. Everybody else typically moves out on their own accord, or we get there and we find out that they're already vacant, that they'd already moved out. You get
All
what I'm
right.
saying? So our failure rate in March kind of matched that because, so those 3 went through, but then they put the moratorium on evictions, and we've just kind of been in a holding pattern.
So for
Those
those that
13,
for,
we've continued to try to collect, right? We're not being threatening. We're not being rude. We don't want them to go talk to their neighbors and be like they're being an asshole, but I've physically gone and knocked on all of their doors and been like, hey, here's what needs to happen, right? This thing is a temporary pause. Like, if you want to stay here and don't want to have to move and don't want to have to do all this, here's how we can help you. We normally wouldn't offer that assistance, but not knowing when it would end, you look at turning a whole unit, you're going to have to do a make ready, you're going to have to expend capital. So if you can work it out, and we use Rhino deposit insurance. So let's say they need 2 years to pay that back rent out. We make them sign a 2-year lease and insure that back rent with the deposit insurance. And if they gave us a $400 deposit that has to sit in a separate bank account, when they fill out that new lease with that new insurance policy, it's going to include that $400 deposit that they already put down. So that money gets to move from our deposit account into our operating account. So
so
we're
hold on,
already getting at least $400. So it's kind of
hold on,
a
hold on.
stopgap there. Go ahead.
And I'm asking you to hold on because we've got a varying level of experience here watching us today that may not necessarily understand what you mean by like the deposit insurance. So a deposit is not your operating capital. A deposit is an escrow account for repairs upon vacancy of the lease. So you do not have the rights to use that escrow account for rents and things of that nature. So what you're saying is you have set up some form of agreement with the tenant so that way you can use their escrow deposits towards your operations and rents. Is that correct? Am I understanding that right?
Yes.
So that way everybody else understands that?
Yes. So if they sign up for deposit insurance, so they now have a deposit that is we basically send them out and say, hey, when you renew this, we're gonna take your deposit that's in our bank account. We're gonna apply it to your principal balance, whatever your balance is, and you're going to be insured for, let's say the deposit was originally $400 and the rent was $600. You're going to have now a $1,000 insurance policy from Rhino Deposit Insurance. And if you don't pay this out, like if you don't get your balance paid, if you don't, if you don't get this paid out or you break your lease, now you're in a 2-year lease because you wanted 2 years to pay that balance, you're now going to be responsible for that $1,000. What that does from the insurance policy, we don't know if that insurance policy is collectible, right? We've never gone to Rhino and said, hey, pay us that deposit. But Rhino is an aggressive debt collector. Okay. So imagine you break a lease and the landlord hits that insurance policy, and now you've got this person coming after you every day, like a bill collector calling you about anything else. You know what I mean? And it shows up on your credit and everything else. So now you've got, a judgment for the eviction going after you for collections, and you've got a judgment for the deposit going after you for collections. It's just a bad situation. So what we do whenever we have that policy in place, if a tenant falls behind and they can't pay and they can no longer, there's not going to be a workable relationship there, we will go to them and say, look, we will not go after this deposit insurance if you hand us back a clean unit. You give us back a clean unit that I can rent by this date and sign this writ of possession, we're not gonna pursue this any further. And
Okay.
it just gives you leverage in a negotiation. That's all it is. Some tenants
So,
will take advantage of that because they don't want the head on their credit. You know what I mean? I need to move. Maybe I have to move back in with my parents. Maybe I'm moving in with a spouse or whatever. I don't want to have to bear the brunt of this. So I'm going to clean up after myself. I'm going to give them back a rentable unit, and I'm not going to have to go through this. And that in turn keeps us from having to go through an eviction process. Some of the dockets on these courts are weeks out. In certain areas, they can be up to like 2 or 3 months out. I imagine the backlog of evictions is going to be tremendous in certain areas. Once they open this back up, there'll be landlords waiting in line to file that paperwork. So, you want to use whatever leverage you got. If you can convince them that it's in their best interest to now, move and not have that go after their credit, that's best. If you can work it out to where they're, now you have an insurance policy in place, that's best. But overall, our failure rate, like you said, we had 20 in April. Those 20 in April are down to 13 now. There are certain tenants in there we don't want to keep, no doubt about it. They've shown, they've shown their they have the money to pay the rent. They have more money than they've ever had in their life, and they think that they can play the system. We don't want to keep that tenant. You know what I mean? We don't want to keep that tenant at any cost. So we're not as flexible with them as we are with the tenants that have lost their job, couldn't get unemployment, don't qualify for unemployment, are having trouble, or maybe have acquired sickness themselves, or have a family member that has. We're working with all those people, but the people that are just trying to play the system, we're doing it. So what we did this month, instead of sending out an eviction notice, we crafted a letter, told them where to find all their assistants, and we sent it to them. We didn't even say anything about evictions on that letter. We didn't say anything at all. Just, hey, here's the assistance that's available from the government. The second letter we crafted and sent them was, hey, have you been affected? We need to know. We need feedback if you've been affected, so we can properly plan for what programs we could create that will help you. We didn't back ourselves in any corner where we're offering help or anything like that, because ultimately, if they have the ability to cure, we want them to cure. After we had knocked on all their doors and talked to them face to face, you know what I mean, and had a better idea of who was what and who wasn't, you know what I mean, and looked at them on an individual basis, like this person's on Social Security and disability. They have not, lost any pay. And now I'm talking to them at their door and they're admitting that, you know what I mean? Okay, we don't necessarily going to have the same help for them as the hairdresser that can't do hair, you know what I mean? So she can't pay rent. You get what I'm saying? So
understood.
We went on it on a case-by-case basis, but the last letter we crafted that went out, we did mention evictions are about to start back again. If you do not contact us and go after these resources, we have up to 3 years to pay this back. We have programs in place that will give you up to 3 years to pay this back. If you do not make contact with us and get a plan in place, eviction notices are coming out next week. And I will actually be putting those eviction notices out as soon as this weekend. So, people want to know, everybody wants to be able to offer some sort of assistance or help or whatever it is, but all that comes at a cost. You know what I mean? It comes at the cost of my personal pay. It comes at the cost of our employees' pay. We got employees that are trying to buy a house so they can't get laid off and get unemployment. You know what I mean? They have to stay working, but at the same time, they can't work enough hours, and they won't, for whatever reason, take that pay like they were working. You know what I mean? Like we're like, hey, we'll pay you a full 40 during this time, but they're like, no, I don't want it. I'm not able to work. We've got air conditioners coming back on for the first time in this season, right? So there are probably 5 or 6 ACs every single year that just don't work anymore. They worked last summer, now they don't. And that's either, that's about $20,000 in repairs that happen every April. So that's $20,000 out of your operating account, and if people aren't paying their rent, there's not enough money there to always make those repairs in a timely manner without having to dip into cash reserves. Well, everybody knows that right now cash reserves are key. We ran our business with a lot of credit lines, and those credit lines kind of act as cash reserves. Whenever you have good months, when you have a slew of ACs that are big ticket items that happen every spring, you dive into a credit line and then you pay them back with months of cash flow in the future. We don't depend on those credit lines right now. We don't know that they're going to be there if we need them. We've seen a lot of people draw them down so they would have the cash reserves. We didn't do that because we didn't want to hit our credit. So, I'm going a lot of places right now, Daniel, but there's, if money doesn't come in for rent, the tenants don't realize that that's their air conditioner that is going to suffer. You know what I mean?
Understood.
We'll be able to patch it. We'll be able to give you some window units. You know what I mean? But if we got to space air conditioners out over, we can only do 3 this month. We can only do 3 next month. And we got 5 to do this month. And we might have 0 next month. That's still at least 2 tenants that got to wait till next month, because you got to operate a business that can retain employees, service the properties as needed, right? And an air conditioner is not a mandatory item in Texas. It sounds crazy, but it's not, where hot water is. You know what I mean? So if you're having to pick between hot water and AC, the tenant that needs hot water is going to get that service. As long as everybody pays rent, none of that gets interrupted. But if they don't pay rent, things can get weird fairly quickly.
I think you're touching base on a lot of really good topics. And for those that are watching right now, I think you're getting to get a really good insight as to what it really looks like to operate at that level. People that are running hundreds of units. I mean, it sounds like, you first get started, you're like, man, I want to own 100 units. Well, owning 100 units is great, and there is a lot of benefits to that, but there's a lot of operations and a lot of time. It's not passive. That's one of the biggest jokes that I hear is like, man, I want to become a landlord so I can have passive income. I'm like, bullshit. If you want passive income, you better get a note. And even at a note, that's like 90% passive. Like, you're no such thing as a truly passive investment. But landlording is definitely not passive. And having this conversation with you, it becomes readily apparent that this is a full-time job being a landlord, especially owning several hundred units. But I think it's really key for people that are looking at landlording and or are landlords themselves to see what it's like operating at that level, because you do manage quite a few units across the state of Texas. And it's very interesting to see what your pain points are in this current standpoint. Some of the things you mentioned is like, the judge not giving the writ of possession. For those that are not talking or understanding of what a writ of possession is, can you explain that for them real quick?
A writ of possession, I'm not an attorney, but a writ of possession is basically gives you possession of the property back. So let's say you go through the eviction. I think it's a 5-day mandatory appeal. So let's say you win an eviction and you get a judgment for your past rent. So you get a judgment for $1,600. Okay. There's 5 days that the tenant has to appeal that judgment. So if they want to come back and appeal it, they have to put up a bond. Okay. Which is going to cost them money to be able to appeal it. And I don't know, I don't think it goes to the county court then, but I don't know. I've never had a tenant appeal because they never want to put the bond up. But once that's up, then you go back to the court and ask for a writ of possession. They grant you a writ of possession, and then the constable essentially, puts you on his calendar and says, okay, I'm going to show up on this date, and we're going to do a set out. Okay. A set out, a writ of possession keeps you from getting sued, essentially. So let's say that inside the house, the tenants are gone. They're 100% gone, but they left furniture, they left personal belongings, and there's still food in the house, right? You can't really say that property's been abandoned if there's food, the power's on, there's all these things, and I don't know them off the top of my head, but essentially, if you just show up after you win the eviction and you don't get the writ and you find all this stuff there and you're like, oh, I've evicted them, and you throw all that shit out, you're going to get sued. They can come back and sue you because you don't have a writ, and they're going to win. So the writ prevents that. What happens is when the constable shows up with the writ, He enforces the writ. He puts a trespass notice on the property and says, so and so, so and so, and so and so, whoever you evicted, will be arrested for trespassing if they're back on the property. That's posted on the door. Then he goes in and he decides what gets thrown away as quote unquote trash and what gets set out as personal belongings. So the couches, the furniture, the kids' toys, all that stuff gets, a lot of constables will have you bring big, thick trash bags, black, that nobody can see through, to package it all up. You set it on the curb. It has to sit there for 24 hours and then you can throw it away. Funny part is, though, the neighbors can roll up there and grab it all as you're setting it out. They can just literally walk down the street with it, and it's not illegal for them to walk off with it. Like the constable will just, stand there and watch them carry a couch off or a TV or whatever. You know what I mean? But you can't throw it away until 24 hours later. 24 hours afterwards, you can go pick that pile of junk up and throw it away, or if you want to take it home with you or whatever you want to do, you can do that. But that's a writ of possession. Basically gives you possession of the property back and allows you to dispose of any items on the inside legally without the recourse of a lawsuit coming back on you. So,
All right. So I appreciate that. I do appreciate that explanation. So one of the things that spurred my interest whenever we're having our conversation earlier this week, last week, was in reference to, you were saying, you've gone through some of these, you got some down units, and you've been listing these out in the open market to get them leased up. And you've had an absolute enormous amount of applications coming in, something that surprised me, and I believe surprised you as well. What's going on with your down units, and how is it filling these things back up?
well, we implemented LiveCom to do our leasing, and like I said, we've been showing some stuff like that, how we use LiveCom inside the paid group. But we implemented LiveCom probably 3 or 4 months ago, and I've got all of our numbers here, and essentially that captures more data and allows us to be able to follow up more efficiently. I don't know if Corona has as much to do with the success we're seeing as LiveCom, ManyChat, and all these bomb systems that we've built out are having. But one thing I do know is demand is there for rentals. To me, moving right now during Corona seems like, I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't be looking to do it. You know what I mean? But for whatever reason, we have had a record month of applications. I think we're probably over 50 applications right now as we have this. The most we'd ever had before that, I think, was something like 40. And we still got, I think, 7 days to go, however many days left in this month, to get more applications. We've also had a record number of leases signed this month, over 20 something leases signed this month. We've had record numbers of renewals. So people are renewing. They're not wanting, in our experience, people are renewing, so they don't want to move. But in other people's experience, they're moving. They're out. Hey, I need a new house. Boom, moving into that new house. So we've had a real good time. Real fortunate to have. We might have tenants that aren't performing, basically living in units, but we've had enough units that we evicted back during Christmas because, we had 42 evictions in December. At the time, it just felt crushing, but having that inventory to fill right now is helping out a lot because, May this month will be the telltale sign, I think, of how we're doing overall as a company. Our May delinquencies will tell more of a story because I think there's going to be kind of a lag here where people haven't gotten enough help that have lost their jobs to be able to weather both April's rent and May's rent. If they anybody that's called the unemployment line knows that it's impossible to get in there. So I think we see more failures in May than we've seen in April, but having that fresh inventory to kind of, put tenants in that are performing is kind of like a stopgap. We've collected almost the exact same amount of rent in April as we did in March. And, that's because we've had new units come online. We hope after these eviction notices and all of this goes out that people that can cure. We hope that they come to the table and want to stay in the unit. But if they don't, then we'll have 13, 14, 15 units to turn. They're opening evictions back up. I think overall, I think the landlord side of the business should be fine. I
Well,
can't say
that's
the same about flips or even owner finance. And we were talking about that off camera, some of the different
so.
things there. But leasing has been really really strong.
So from that standpoint, like I'm glad to hear that. My personal experience as a landlord, I'm all commercial. I don't have any single family. Is on that side, like several of my tenants have been extremely hit. I mean, hit extremely hard, and like I don't even have to say, let me look at your books. I know. I mean, like I can see that their businesses are 100% shut down. 100% of their revenue is gone, and I now have to make a decision as a landlord of like how you're not being irresponsible.
Right.
I really don't have a problem at all evicting somebody that's being irresponsible. But these people, their businesses are being affected by something completely out of their control, and I'm not holding them accountable to it. I'm really just saying, you know what? I'm going to ignore the payments that you're missing right now. Once we get out of this lockdown, I want to see your business back up and going again, and I need to have a very open and honest communication. I want to see what's going on with your revenue and everything from there going forward, and I'm going to work with you to get you back up to where you were beforehand. And I'm just going to share in the pain with you because right now, whether I have you or I don't have you, I'm still going to have a vacancy. So I might as well do my best to take an existing tenant that was performing as a responsible tenant and trying to get them back to performing as a responsible tenant. Because if I don't, really all I'm doing is shutting their business down for them and then leaving myself with a vacancy that I have to fill. So I'd much rather just work with them and try and get that figured out. But yeah, like as of right now, I'm probably about 14 to 15,000 shy of my monthly recurring revenue.
Yeah.
They're just not able to pay.
I've got an interesting fact for you. That's I don't know. I mean, we own the mobile homes in our mobile home parks, so that's one thing. That's one piece of it. But our mobile homes are performing better than our apartments. We're having more failures in the apartments than we are the mobile homes. We're
I think
having
there's a different in mindset for people living in apartments. I believe like overall their mindset is I don't own this, but and I guess you're doing rentals with your mobile homes, but my
yeah.
experience with mobile homes is they have a tighter sense of ownership with their mobile home. How are the owner finance side of things looking for you on the mobile homes? What's going on with you on the owner finance side of things? We talked a lot about rentals. What's going on your owner finance stuff?
So we underwrite all of our hotels as a rental or owner finance, and depending on how much work that property needs when we buy it, where it falls. So if it's rent ready, obviously it's easier to rent it for us than it is to owner finance it. We can turn that unit quicker if they quit paying and all that. But if it needs more work and we don't feel like putting in $2,000 or $3,000 worth of capital into it, then we'll owner finance it. And we're talking, mobile homes that we buy for $8,000 and then owner finance for 40 on land. Now, not just the mobile home, but they're on land. And that business has just, I mean, it's like crickets. We had owner finance, and I spoke too soon. I went into Roughneck Real Estate, the group, and started chopping it up about it. And the lady did not produce. So we have a deal that we bought in a rural market, nice little property. It's like, I mean, it's a nice property. It's a 2-story little house with a big party deck. I mean, it's a cool property out in the country. We bought that for $25,000 and we're offering it out owner finance for 90. Now, could we lower that price and probably get a buyer a little quicker? Yeah, maybe, but really you're dealing with a payment buyer and a money down situation. That we had somebody with 9,000 down that came right to the table and we could not get that across the finish line because of Corona. So that one's been affected. Now it's listed on MLS with owner finance as an option. We don't know. I mean, it's just crickets. It's not showing. Nobody's coming out. We've put out bandit signs in Spanish, everything else. We've had probably 40 or 50 different leads come in through those bandit signs, have not been able to get any of them across the finish line. Same thing with a little property we bought in Waco. Same thing with a little property we own in Weatherford. We're talking about a wide region. Now, I think that's just a little bit of uncertainty. If I've got a big cash savings right now, do I want to dump that into a property at this moment? Probably not. Will it happen once the economy opens back up? Maybe. You know what I mean? I almost want more data, but right now, if you just feel this big headwind on your owner finance on that side. The other side of it is we offered up all of our mobile home parks owner finance probably 2 or 3 months ago. I don't know, just to clean up balance sheets. So, that's what all this stuff behind me on the whiteboard is. I did a video yesterday on my YouTube channel showing this. But we have different people that want to own or finance our mobile home parks that are bringing 50, 60, 70, $100,000 down. So that's a good liquid bump into our operating account. And then we're going to wrap the mortgage that's there, which some of it's private money, some of it's bank money, but we do a wrap on that and it makes us a couple of $1,000s a month, but it cleans up our balance sheet. We now have a note as an asset on our balance sheet instead of debt as a liability on our balance sheet, and just makes us more lendable in the apartment space, to kind of get that cleaned up. That's just a quick solution to a small problem we were seeing on lendability. Doing that, offering them out on our finance, we've had a ton of interest in those over the past probably 3 weeks. A lot of people, one buyer's from Canada. It's like a lot of places are looking around. I wouldn't say that, it's a blanket statement. I wouldn't say that everything's doing great in California, New York, different places like that. But I think there's a lot of people that are looking around and finding states that are more apt to let them operate. You know what I mean? Not being as
Understood.
restrictive, not looking like they're going to close down their economy for 18 months and stuff like that.
Let
If
me
that makes sense. So I one
let,
side of it, it's kind of crickets and that's whatever. And, we'll wait for more data. On the other side, I mean, we're showing all of our properties are showing, all of our big properties that we're offering owner finance on are showing 2 and 3 times a week.
well, give me just 1 second. So we've got about 100 to 120 people watching right now between multiple Facebook locations as well as YouTube. But I'm not seeing a lot of engagement from the group. Like, I'm not seeing a whole lot of love coming in, and I don't know exactly why that is, but I've got my speculations, and I would speculate that's because you, sir, are far beyond the education levels of most people. And that to be said, I want to get some feedback from the group, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory fashion. It's just that a lot of times when you start getting into your mind, man, you can really start dropping some information, and I think people get overwhelmed with the amount of information you can drop. So right now, if you are watching and you're appreciating what you're getting out of this, man, right now, show some love by giving us some thumbs up. Like right now, we've got close to 100 people watching, and right now I see maybe 20 people that have liked it. So if you really are enjoying what you're doing, give me some feedback as to, is this over your head? Is this just right? Let me know in the comments, like, some of the questions that you may be having, because like right now, like, we're not getting nearly as much engagement as we normally would, but at the exact same time, I know that our topic is way out there, and it's a little bit above and beyond what we would normally talk about, because we are getting deep in the weeds. And I like getting deep in the weeds, because this is a conversation on a level that I can jump in on, and I can get at. But if you're newer in the industry and you're feeling a little lost here, start dropping questions. This is your opportunity to have an open forum where you can get questions like that answered, because it's not often that you're gonna have insight into a conversation like this. I remember when I first got started in this business, I would be a fly on the wall, and I would listen to conversations like this so I could up my real estate investing vocabulary IQ, because there'd be a lot of stuff being talked about, and I'm like, boom, I don't have a clue what they're talking about. But because I would sit as a fly on the wall in these types of conversations, I became attuned to listening to them. And then as I started Googling more and more and more, I started understanding what they were talking about. And then once I started understanding what they were talking about, I could have conversations with them at the level that they were having. And then I didn't feel as intimidated anymore about approaching a more sophisticated investor and feeling like I'd looked stupid. So it's opportunities like this where you get to see an advanced conversation with people that are running larger operations that'll give you insight as to how you should advance your real estate IQ as you stick around in this business. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing, hook us up with some comments, some likes, some shares, because I really don't believe that some people may really understand what you're getting access to as we speak. You got any input on that, Corey?
Well, I find that humorous, Daniel, because you probably don't remember this conversation, but I was out looking at tax sale properties, and that's probably about to kick back off again. So we'll be out looking at more tax sale properties. But there was a convenience store out on Interstate 35, and
Oh yeah,
it's shut down. It, it's closed, completely closed. But it was on the tax sale auction for 230,000,
I
and it was
remember.
right after you had paid that $300,000 assignment fee to Aaron Silk, and I was like, hell, I'll reach out to Daniel. Like, he knows what's up, and so I called you up or text you or messaged you on Facebook, whatever form of communication, and I was like, yeah, I got this convenience store out here, and blah 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 blah.
I
And
remember.
you asked me, you said, "What's the NOI?" And I was like, I don't. Well, you know what I mean? It just shut me down. I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't. And the funny part about it is, so I went and I Googled it because I didn't know what it was. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I Googled NOI, and I was looking for YouTube videos, and there was no YouTube video. And I remembered that probably a year later. And so, obviously, once I figured it out, could explain it, I went and made a YouTube video about NOI because I figured more people would have that question. You know what I mean? Like, what is
Right.
NOI? Like, how do I figure NOI? But yeah, you floored me with that. And then when I finally figured it out, I had to come back and reply. Well, it's right there next to zero. Like,
I remember that conversation. I really do, because I had no clue how to operate a convenience store, let alone a gas station, etc. And through that conversation, I politely declined, but I do remember that conversation. And what I don't think so many people understand, and I've told them this repeatedly, and I think they think I'm blowing them off because of my answer. Because people ask me questions like, "What is NOI?" and I'm like, "Google it." I'm like Google it. That's how I learned 90% of what I learned. Like, people are like, "Who was your mentor?" And I was like, my biggest mentor was Google. Like, I would just sit there at 3 o'clock in the morning and just veg out on
same.
on nonfiction, and I'd read as much as I possibly could about the business class that I was trying to be in. If people were like, "Well, how did you learn about a commercial office warehouse?" I Googled it. I just sat there and I read and I read and I read. So, if you want to be a part of this business, you must first be a student of this business. You need to educate yourself. And while it's definitely a leapfrog to grab a hold of a mentor, I personally believe that you should bring yourself to at least a common core level of education in the industry you need to be in before you hit that mentor. Like, get yourself up to where you can really understand some of that, so that way when you do approach a mentor, you can have an intelligent conversation backed off of questions that you could not figure out on your own.
Oh, no doubt. And then on the mentor, like, look, I'm going to tell everybody straight up, look, if you want a mentor in this business, just find some fucking real estate. I mean, it don't matter if it's good or bad real estate. That convenience store didn't work out for you, and it didn't work out for me, but that conversation worked out very well, right? Because just learning what NOI was, and then being able to go to cap rate, and then figuring out debt service coverage ratio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just hearing those items and being able to go watch videos about it, learn about it, being out in the marketplace, going and looking at real estate every single day, gave me the opportunity to get around people that would even give me that answer, right? There's nothing worse than a hypothetical, right? I didn't say, "Hey, Daniel, if I had a convenience store, would you buy it from me?" Right? I said, "I got a convenience store. It's 230,000 on this auction right now. Like, we can pick this baby up." You know what I mean?
Right.
And you said, "What's the NOI?" Well, I didn't know that, but when I figured it out, I came back no, and then you politely declined. But that conversation led to where we're at today. And
Right.
when people always want to know, do you own part of Propelio? And I'm like, no, I don't own part of Propelio. Well, why do you promote them so much? I'm like, because I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for Propelio. And that was before the academy. That was
Damn.
before, these daily lives and all that. That was before all of that. Before any of that, you could chat with you on Propelio on the little chat window, or you could DM me on Facebook. That was the only access you had, and y'all helped us tremendously, from lead generation to exit strategies. I mean, you name it. And then coming out with the studio and everything else that y'all did to get more information into the marketplace. I can't tell you how many people have benefited from it that don't even know they benefited from it, because they think that they're learning from Roughneck Real Estate, but really they're just learning from an extension of Propelio, because there would be no Roughneck Real Estate without Propelio. So,
Damn, man.
that's just mad props for you. And, and that's why we're a loyal customer. And that's why I tell everybody. Matter of fact, I'm Austin James Ingram. He did a interview whenever we were doing the show over. He's an appraiser, and during this time period, now he finally got enough time freed up. He's using Propelio Driving for Dollars app and Skip Genie data that he gets from Propelio, like the auto, and calling people. He's locked up his first deal, a 190 house. We're doing the loan on it. He's buying it for $58,000, seller's price.
Damn.
Propelio Driving for Dollars app.
Damn. Well,
like,
cool, man.
He's got his second deal under contract. He went to Danacito's, class, class, and he's got a 0 down, 0% interest property that he's buying for $72,000. Going to have some title issues. We're going to have to get him through title, but 0 down, 0% interest loan, $72,000 purchase price, 150 house. Needs a little bit of a rehab. You know what I mean? But I mean, you can't
beat that. 0 down, 0% interest. Like, your liability on that is limited, but your cash on cash returns could be infinite. Like, I'm assuming that he's going to have to put some money in on a remodel, but he could potentially just turn around and owner finance it back out as a handyman special and do the repairs as a down payment or something of that nature, or do it as a lease option 6 months, and then you got to have your repairs made in those 6 months, or the repairs are made in 6 months, the house becomes yours, and you get to do some monthly payments. There's a lot of creative ways of exiting that deal. But when you're in at 0 down and 0% at 72, 50% asset value, that's an amazing fucking deal.
When every payment's going to principal, everything's on the table. You know what I mean? It works as everything, because if you got to go source another investor that's got some money and pay them interest only over the top of what you're paying to the seller, I mean, you're still winning. That deal right there, I mean, I could chop that deal up into little bitty pieces. It's going to be an amazing deal. But he did that with the Driving for Dollars app that I recommended to him through Propelio, and of course he's a Propelio subscriber. I mean, if you're during these times, what better way to utilize anything? You want to get outside, you want to go around. You maybe not allowed really, but nobody's pulling over cars asking where they're going to and from. Get in there and do some Driving for Dollars. Those lists are always the best lists. I've said they're the best list. The ones that you get through your windshield are always going to be the best. So thank you for creating that app. You know what I mean? That and for us, I mean, you can give access to other people and have your mom driving for dollars. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's just a really good functionality. But I didn't mean to get off on that tangent. But yeah, so Daniel, you have helped us out a lot. But these high level conversations that you used to do these on webinars. You used to do these. Jacob, my business partner, used to listen to them when he still lived in Houston. That was, I think, y'all's first platform to put information out. And he used to listen to that. And we used to implement these strategies that we heard on here. And that's why we've gotten as far as we have in the last 5 years. This is actually, this month right here, or last month, was my 5th year in real estate. And we found y'all in 2016.
Let me ask real quick, because I think this is important for people to see that are watching right now. And if you don't want to answer this, I completely and totally understand. But you started out brand new into this industry 5 years ago, and you're currently at close to 250 units that you own and operate. And you have done quite a bit in the note industry. You've done quite a bit in the landlording. You've done some wholesaling. You've done some flipping. All of that taken into consideration. You've only been in this industry for 5 years, and I'm going to suspect that your net worth cumulatively has reached far better than what most people would anticipate their lifetime to do. So in 5 years, I'm going to say that you've done pretty damn well, considering you're at least 250 units underneath your operation or control. All of that to take into consideration. Like I said, that is a short period of time to achieve what you have achieved. And for those that are out there like, oh man, this is just some info sales bullshit, you really, it doesn't work that way, you can't do it. Here's a shining example of what somebody that's got some hustle in them can do in the short period of time. Like, we were in an upward trending market. You did have a lot of things going on right now, but in the upcoming market we're about to see, I don't think it's going to actually get harder. I think it's going to get a lot easier. So, like, for somebody like you, like, let the people know that, damn it, you can do it. You just got to get off your ass and do it. You can't just sit there and get into analysis paralysis and not do anything. You got to do it.
Well, I've been saying for the past probably 2 or 3 weeks, the more we operate in this, right? So we got criticized a lot by a lot of different people for the way that we hard-headedly ran our business, right? So people would always see me out putting out bandit signs and they'd be like, why are you doing that? And my response would always be simple. What else would I do? And they're like, oh, you could do some higher value work, the 80-20 principle, all that. I'm like, I get that. I understand that. But you don't understand like endorphins and adrenaline and everything and how it affects you and how it energizes you, right? When I'm out looking at real estate, trying to buy real estate and slamming signs, and then I drive, I get to be it with my thoughts. I get to come up with new ideas. I get to implement new strategies. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's what makes me function at the highest level. If I just sit in here all day, I've tried it. You know what I mean? It ain't me. I can't do it. I need that windshield.
I know it.
They have criticized and said, why are you managing your own properties? Why would you ever do it this way? Why are you doing this? Why not hire this or do that? And I'm like, it's kind of a rob Peter to pay Paul sometimes. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're just looking at your cash position and deciding, okay, do I want to pay $7,000 to trim trees or rent a man basket? That's an easy decision for me. I love running a chainsaw. I can trim trees. I like being in the work. In the springtime, it's like a little vacation. You don't have to think to run a chainsaw. So just run the chainsaw. You know what I mean?
I like that you bring that up, and if I cut you off, I'm sorry. I apologize because I think you and I have a very similar mind in the way it works and the way it operates. I cannot be stuck behind a computer all day long. I will slit my wrists at the end of the day if I have to do that every single day. But you know what? You put a hammer in my hand, you put a tool belt on me, I'll go out and I'll build a house. And I will absolutely love swinging that hammer and turning that wrench all day long. But like you just said, it's in my mind, it's very mindless work. I don't have to think to build a house. I just do it. But while I am building that house, guess what I'm doing? I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how can I do that marketing campaign? How can I do this? How can I do that? And all of my creative mind is going while my mind is just mindlessly swinging at a hammer. Yep. And that is one of the things that has allowed me, that's like my meditation. That's my sweet spot. Like you let me go do some physical labor, and I'll do all my mental work while I'm doing the physical labor. But if you just put me behind a desk to stare at a computer to do mental work, I will drive myself insane because my ADD kicks in, and I'm like, I'm ready to throw a hole through the wall because I just cannot sit there. And hearing you say that, it gives me some validation and doesn't make me feel so bad about that.
Well, the thing about physical labor is it's measurable, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're sitting in front of a computer, you can't necessarily look and see how much work you got left to do or how much work you've already done. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I guess if you're filling out a spreadsheet, you can scroll up and down and see where you're at. But otherwise, I mean, you just can't really, it's not a measurable, you can't see your victory. But if I'm mowing a pasture, I can see exactly how much I've done and exactly how much I have to go. Right. Mm-hmm. And the entire time, but you're mindless. You're just doing it. I'm going to go shred after I get done with this and go check on some projects, move, the tractor around from job to job. But within all of that, like when I take that criticism from other people that we shouldn't do that, and I've been saying this for the last 3 weeks, operators will not suffer during this economy. If you are not afraid to go do the work, you will not suffer during this economy. You might, there might be your load might go down. You might have to work harder to get the same results, but suffering is a different level of all of that, right? There are going to be people that never come back out of this. They're never going to be back in real estate. They're never going to get another crack at it again because they're going to lose all confidence, all faith in everything because all the systems and stuff that they built are not going to yield results. They could spend themselves out of money. You know what I mean? Like all of that could crumble down on top of them. For me, it's like, I'm sitting in the truck before I come in here to do this interview, and we're chopping it up about live comm strategies where we're taking our properties that are on MLS and we're going to market them with a live comm number, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, all the old school things that we used to do that we've gotten away from because if you just threw a shit sandwich on the MLS, it would sell in 10 minutes. It's not happening like that anymore. Our flips are sitting still. So we need a bigger amount of attention on it. So we're going to do Facebook paid ads. We're going to do all that, but we're going to funnel them to a live comm number because once they call that live comm number, I can text them every day until they opt out. Once they call that live comm number, it's going to send them an auto text response and it's going to tell them to call another live comm number. When they call that other live comm number, it's going to direct them to the agent. So By the time they're calling the agent, they know what the down payment is. They know what the rent is. They know what every possibility for that property is. And if they want to rent it, owner finance it, or buy it outright cash, they're going to have all that information, and they're going to decide to call that second live call number. It's going to ring that agent, but that agent might not be able to answer the phone right then, and he might not call them back, right? It might fall through the cracks because that's what happens in life in general. But now, since they called that other live com number, what are they going to get from us the next day? A text message follow up. Hey, were we saw you called to view the property. Were you able to see it? We are taking control of so much more. We wouldn't do that in a normal market, right? But we're going to do that now. We're going to utilize live comm on our bandit signs. Why? Because if everybody that calls that bandit sign calls, and some of them come through, some of them don't make it through, whatever that situation is, the next day they're going to get a text message follow up. You called us yesterday to see if we might be interested in purchasing a property. What's the address, right? Just small tweaks in this business. But for us, it's just taking more control, taking more of not leaving it up to another system or another process. It's like, I might have to come in here and send all of those text messages every single morning myself. Another thing that we put in place is, no matter if it's owner finance, no matter if it's a rental or whatever, if they view the property and they do not make the decision to buy or lease, okay, I am getting those numbers sent to me personally, and every evening I'm calling all those people back and working those objections myself. I can bust out of this business doing all of that I just named, plus a lot more, and feel good about it. You know what I mean? Hell, I went out fighting, it didn't work out. Like, I wish things would have been different. I got crushed by Corona, but I was calling everybody that didn't lease every single day and finding out, oh, well, why didn't you lease? Well, my current apartment has more windows, it has more lighting, and I really like it there. And I'm like, okay, well, does your current apartment have a brand new air conditioner? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Does your current apartment mow your grass? What if I took this much off your deposit, right? Mm-hmm. I get a chance to work that objection myself and not rely on somebody else's input that says, yeah, they went and looked at it, they're just not interested. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
Most people don't want to micromanage at that level. And I'm not necessarily micromanaging. You know what I mean? Like, if I was micromanaging, I'd be, I'm going to take every phone call of everybody that comes in, and then I'd overwhelm myself and tap out in 10 minutes. No, I'm letting it work through the top. And then I'm seeing what the data is myself. And then I'll go back to my team and I'll say, oh, okay, hey, all you needed to do was ask this one more question and you would have gotten there. You know what I mean? So now I'm making them better as well.
Well, that's awesome, man. So we're wrapping up. We're getting close to the end of this, man. I think one of the key takeaways for anybody that's out there watching right now, especially watching you, and I attribute a lot of your success to nothing more than just a fucking work ethic. Like, you hustle your ass off. And I hear a lot of people say you can't teach hustle. And I would slightly disagree with that. Like, I got hustle beat into me as a kid. Like, there was no option to be lazy. You got your ass beat if you were. Obviously, as an adult, no one's going to come over there and beat your ass into working, but you need to beat your own ass. Like, you really need to just stand up, turn around, and whip your own ass and say, you know what, if you're going to do this, do it. Don't half-ass anything. Don't just kind of tip your toe into the water and see if it's lukewarm or not. You got to just jump in. If it's hot, it's hot. If it's cold, it's cold. And you got to survive. There is no half in, half out kind of thing with this. You got to get out there and just hustle. And like you've done 5 years in, no idea what you were doing right or wrong to start with, and quite honestly, you jacked a lot of stuff up to begin with, your own admission. But I mean, you got out there and you failed your way forward, and that's cliche as all hell, but it was all of those mistakes that you made that gave you the experience you needed to be at the position you're in right now, and you just don't give up. And that's one of the things that I like about you is you always fight, you always go out there to win, and you have no reserves for failure. You're like, all right, I fucked up. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And I love that about you, man.
Well, and look, as far as opportunities, you said it best. We did all this in an up and coming market. The skill set that a lot of people have right now that are watching this if any skill set, negotiations, anything that you're good at, whatever you're great at, is going to propel you during this downtime, right? So if more opportunities become available and you're a savage negotiator, you're going to have less competition. just a fact. People are going to look at this and be the excuse to quit. Like that's going to be it. So if you just say I'm a savage negotiator, I'll need to negotiate more and keep calling. You know what I mean? Do the stuff that's free, like just Skip Genie's $99 unlimited now, and burn that phone up and negotiate your ass off. You're eventually going to see that this is going to be the easiest environment that anybody has ever operated in the next probably 6 to 8 months. You know what I mean? Less competition, more opportunity, and as long as there are people out there that want to buy real estate to hold on to or whatever they're looking at, if you can make those connections and you can bring those deals, they're going to gravitate towards you too, and you're going to find your partners that are going to help you build your 200 units, your 250 units, because that's how it works. So, that's what I would leave anybody with is, whatever you're good at,